Led by Enfys Nest, an individual equally as mysterious as she was dangerous, the Cloud Riders took their name from those who operated as swoop pilots. Otherwise, those in the gang who leaped from sidecars onto target vessels were more appropriately labelled marauders. Indeed, so fast were their notorious crafts that each member could easily catch up to, if not overtake, starships and ground vehicles alike. And while such swoop bikes sported bold colours to distinguish the Cloud Riders from rival gangs, such as the Dark Star Hellions and the Nova Demons, they were often described as engines with seats, and with good reason. For example, their lack of finesse made them both crude and overpowered. Moreover, they were incredibly difficult to control, requiring timing, instinct, and strength. Of course, these very traits made swoop bikes the perfect vehicles for spectator sports in the core worlds. The same, however, could not be said on frontier planets populated by outlaw gangs. Circling the skies of Vandor aboard a carrier ship called the Airy, the nomadic group launched themselves from altitudes of 400 kilometers to plunder cargo ships and settlements alike for both riches and gear. Contrary to their reputation as one of the most infamous swoop pirate gangs in the Outer Rim territories, however, the Cloud Riders preferred capture over destruction. Likewise, much of their gear, such as ordnance launchers loaded with cable rockets, was dedicated to immobilizing targets. In the same vein as their leader, the Cloud Riders tended to conceal their identities with masks and helmets. But that's not to say each outlaw was entirely mysterious. Take these 8 names, for example. WEAZEL. Having worked with the Hutt gang out of Mos Espa on Tatooine, WEAZEL left behind a life as a petty criminal to become Enfys Nest's most vigilant spy and closest lieutenant. Tubes. This mysterious marksman, who concealed his features behind a chrome helmet, spoke very little of his past. So much so that when the Galactic Empire conquered his homeworld of Yartonga, an act which sparked a mass exodus, Tubes refused to join the likes of Crimson Dawn in favour of the Cloud Riders. Taishan Maxa. Having learned harsh survival lessons following a violent gang dispute on the planet Ishan, one sparked by the infamous droid Gotra, Taishan sought out the Cloud Riders as a means of protecting her younger sister. Speaking of whom, Moda Maxa. Given her superior piloting skills over Taishan, Moda demonstrated impeccable timing and coordination while riding a Volturine Skysnipe 616D during shipjacking raids, but that's not to say she was equally as skilled as a martial artist. In fact, Moda often trained with her sister as a means of improving her combat abilities. Calixido Reese. The pilot of a Javelin 112 swoop bike, Reese used his competitive streak to race the Maxa sisters during raids. At least according to Taishan, he had a particular fondness over Moda. BATCHA HUNARIS. A brute who preferred clubs and fists to knives and blasters, HUNARIS chose to tag along with the Cloud Riders following their raid upon a fueling depot on Orinda he was designated to guard. Orome Azelo. This former bounty hunter with a strong sense of justice grew tired of the quantity of political targets that were being assigned to him by the Galactic Empire, so rather than deal with corrupt bureaucracy, he instead pursued a life punishing violent criminals. BAROOSH PAWK. With more daring than brains, BAROOSH PAWK was a climber and skydiver who typically paired with Taishan Maxa on raids, doing so on our Saeli merked Halberd 441. And last, but certainly not least, Enfys Nest. From the outside looking in, no one was entirely sure on who or what lay underneath the mask of Enfys Nest. The exact identity, age, gender and species of the individual behind the Cloud Rider attacks all went unanswered for years. Even her true voice was something of a mystery due to her vocoder chest box. However, a closer inspection of her apparent random attacks pointed to a particular hostility towards Crimson Dawn operations. During these very raids, the martial artist utilised a broad mix of combat styles to further confuse those seeking to pinpoint her origin. This, combined with her fleet-footed agility, relentless ferocity, and powerful weapons, made Nest rather tricky to deal with. So much so that given her disdain towards blasters, she often closed large distances with stunning leaps and deadly swipes. The outlaw did so with her weighted Electro Ripper polearm, the base of which, or the glowing energy ribbon, left her enemies stunned and shocked, literally. But despite her violent ways, Nest etched poetry upon her mask just underneath the animalistic antennae. It read, "Until we reach the last edge, the last opening, the last star, and can go no higher." Having said all of that, the Cloud Riders were far from the outlaws and pirates they were portrayed to be. But which rebel in the making is your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. If you've learned something new from today's video, be sure to leave a like. To help out the channel that little bit extra, please do consider pledging to our Patreon page, and for weekly content on all things Han Solo, press that subscribe button and notification bell to keep it locked here to the Kankazans.